I'm going to push recording. Push the recording. Again, Alyssa Klein, Deed, Vocational Rehabilitation Services. I'm our statewide transition and pre-employment transition coordinator.
Thank you, Alyssa. And we'll pass it over to our colleague, Carrie Jacober.
Hi, good afternoon. Carrie Jacober with the Department of Human Services, Disability Services. Welcome.
And then we'll pass it over to our other colleague, Beth Gruby.
I'm not hearing Beth.
I'm not either. So Beth Gruby is also with also with DHS and should be joining us momentarily. All right, I will keep us going. So just to outline our agenda for today, we want to share with you, kind of show how everything comes together with our work through the employment capacity building cohort. Then we'll have a presentation around the Disability Hub and My Vault. After that, we'll go through an overview of the data we will be tracking and go through like what are the expectations there, frequently asked questions, and then we'll go into our breakout rooms. We do understand that some of this can be overwhelming, so we want to show you that it's not. And kind of outline that for you to simplify it because we don't want anybody to be overwhelmed. We only want to help you guys. So with that, kind of talking a little bit more about that collaboration, we wanted to make sure we were connecting everything for you guys so you see how this all comes together. And keep in mind that ECBC really is that work that you are already doing and know how to do, right? And so we are just emphasizing that collaboration so it supports the efforts you're already doing and providing that systematic structure that can be and is being implemented in your teams, your community teams and districts. So for those of us who are new, this may seem complicated. However, we want to say off the bat, it is not. And it's really about that our students are gaining that competitive integrated work experiences while they are in school. And it's that leads then to they have competitive integrated employment after they graduate high school and keep going forward with that. And so really, as we all know, the more access to work experiences while they're in school, it's one of the number one indicators for success after high school. And so we have the workbooks that I feel like we should just be transparent and that they seem overwhelming, but once you get into those workbooks and see the tools, it's really just these tools that we've set up for you guys so that you're not missing anything. And it's helping keep track of your collaboration so you're able to organize that information and process together. And this tool can be used to implement as a district, system-wide, however you wish to use that tool. And then the last component of the work with ECBC are those strand area focuses that you chose through your self-assessment. And these really allow your teams to focus in on that building your system together and allowing for more competitive integrated work experiences. So for example, if your strand is business engagement, you're increasing the opportunities building partnerships with businesses. If your strand is customized employment, you are learning new ways to prepare students for competitive integrated employment. And then if your strand is high quality transition programming, you're learning new ways to enhance the transition planning process. Then lastly, we just want to make sure you have one strand area identified. I know it's tempting when you go through that self-assessment, like, oh, this one has more high priority. We are recommending that you have one strand area. And then we know it can be a lot. So we want to assist you in this process. So with doing that, we wanted to share with you that every community team has an assigned liaison from our ECBC steering committee who will be following up with you, may have already, to see what kind of help we are able to provide you. We do go into your workbooks to see your progress, and really the reason that we're going into those is to figure out what ways we can provide that support. In doing so, just wanting to emphasize, keep your workbooks up to date so that we know where you guys are at. And I promise you, no judgment. We just want to come from a place of support. So really stressing to keep those workbooks up to date, please.
All right. So one thing we want to share is data, because why are these workbooks important? As Lindsay said, it's about helping you all progress in your local partnership, but it also helps at the statewide level to show our outcomes as a team working together. And not even beyond that, the Department of Education reports to the Olmsted sub-cabinet every year on our outcomes within ECBC. So we just wanted to share the outcomes from last year. So this was for the 2020-2021 school year, which was a year like no other. So we can kind of look at it as a baseline going forward. We hope that, you know, we'll be able to continue to improve on these numbers, because we're still dealing with the pandemic, but we're able to do a little more than we were able to last year anyway. And we're going to talk more about this again today, but as you recall, on the student tracker page, the tab in your workbook, there's 4 goals that we ask that you work on together. Number 1 is the total number of students that are employed during the school year that are ages 18 through 21 with your community team. And so we added up from all of the workbooks from last year, and there were 359 from all of our ECBC teams, students that were employed last year. So yay, that's an awesome number. And of the 359 students in 18 to 21 transition programming, 38 of those students had a primary disability of developmental cognitive disability. And again, when we're going to keep talking about this, but that was the original goal with ECBC, because those students typically, or not typically, but that was the group of students that tended to go into segregated, sheltered employment after the 18 to 21 programming. So that's really where ECBC began, and it's the number that gets reported to the Olmsted sub-cabinet. And then we had the number of those students that were employed last year, who was new this year, because you know, we want to celebrate those that continued employment from the year before, but also those wins that you have during that year, during that school year. So last year there was 235 new jobs of the 359. And then of that number, there was 52 students with developmental cognitive disabilities. So that's the big number that goes to the sub-cabinet. The goal is 150. So we didn't make it, but everyone understands it was during a pandemic. We have that same goal for 150 this year. We also have a spreadsheet. It's linked here, so it's in our SharePoint site, and I'm just going to share it real quick. Can I just steal the share from you? Oh, there, yeah. Am I sharing it, Lindsay?
Yes.
Okay, just so you all know, just so you can see, like, for your team, and again, this was going off of your workbook from last year. So we have every community team, and then we have those items 1A, 2 and 2A, and then what your outcomes were last year. And I highlighted the final column again, which is that number of students who have developmental cognitive disabilities that were new to gaining employment last year. So that's how we came up with those totals that I just reported to you. So it's helpful for you to see kind of where your team was at last year and how we want to keep kind of improving, we want to be improving every year. So, all right, I'll stop sharing and go back to that.
Thank you, Alyssa. Let me get our PowerPoint back up. All right. Okay, we'll go to our next
All right. So at our last meeting, we reviewed with all of you the annual ECBC 5-step process that you go through as a team. So we talked about step 1, that your team completes the self-assessment within the self-assessment tab in your workbook. And then after you complete that, you select a strand. So if your team has not been able to do that yet, don't stress, but you'll want to do that. That'll be the first thing that you want to do. And you know, if you haven't selected a strand yet, your team is going to have to agree on a strand to go to today, but you will have time at the end of the breakouts. When you go into a strand, there's going to be time for you to go into your community team to work. So if you haven't done the self-assessment yet, that would be the first thing that you'll want to do. So that was number 1. Number 2 is that your team is going to want to solidify, you know, who your members are. And if you're missing somebody either from VRS or the school or the county, make sure you do some outreach. And again, you can include other community partners as well, but those are the 3 primary that need to be at the table. And then you'll want to set your monthly meeting when you're going to meet as a team. And then number 3, enter your enrollment data. So the enrollment data tab where you're looking at all the students in 18 to 21 programming within your school district or your school. And then creating a goal from that enrollment tab for the number of students that you want to help to obtain employment this year. And then number 4, you track your goals and data within the student tracker tab. So we'll be looking at that again in a little while. But number 5 is what we said we would be covering this month, which is tracking team progress through the action plan and milestones. So I think what we can do is go into the next slide. So the action plan. So we're going to have some time today, again, in your breakout sessions milestones really come first. So, so I know we flipped ahead here. So you're going to have some time. We're going to talk about the milestones in a little bit. Carrie and Beth from DHS are going to talk about the community team milestones that are in the milestone tab. And then you're also going to have time in your breakout with your strand to talk about the milestones that you have listed in your strand, because those are the things that we want to be working towards this year as a team. It's about that continuous improvement within your team. So you're going to have time you'll see on this slide where it says beginning of the year / fall 2021 baseline. So you're going to have time to rate yourselves as a team. You'll start with the community teams after you learn a little bit about the items that are in your workbook related to the community teams. And you'll see that little light blue box towards the top. It says not started, in progress, or achieved. So you'll start with where you're at. If you've not started it, that's okay. You can put a 0. If you have started it, you're in progress. If you feel like, oh, we've done this, we've mastered it, then you can go 2 for achieved. I don't want this to feel like negative if it's a 0, because some of these things, when you get into your strands, you might just be focusing on 1 or 2 things this year, and that's okay. But you'll get to see how you're progressing from all the different items within your strand that will really help to, again, to improve within that strand. So after you look at the milestones today, you'll talk about action planning. And we're going to help you with exactly what to be putting into your action plan. And we're going to be looking at what you're going to work on between this meeting in November up until January, when our next ECBC meeting happens. So we'll give you kind of what you need to put into your action plan, but it's just a matter of working together. Okay, we've got this. This is from our milestones of what we decided or what we're going to be working on today or the next couple months. Who's going to do what? For instance, one aspect will be selecting 3 students to work on the hub and the vault. So which 3 students and who's going to help get them set up in the hub and the vault? So those are things that you'll put into your action plan. Is there anything more that, Lindsay, you'd want to say about that right now? We'll talk more about it later, as well as in the strands too, so you can ask questions later. Okay.
I feel like you covered it really well. All right, we are going to transition into Disability Hub. Carrie, do you want me to keep advancing?
Please.
Okay.
All right, Carrie Jacober here again. I'm with my colleague Beth Gruby, and we're going to talk a little bit about person-centered tools and resources that are available to you that will increase student and family engagement as you work towards your goals on your team. You want to go to the next slide? So as Alyssa talked about, she showed you a glimpse into your SharePoint workbook. And so these milestones are listed kind of first. And so getting started, like Lindsay talked about too, the recap is you'll choose one of those 3 strand areas: high quality transition planning, customized employment, business engagement, and there's milestones that go along with those. But in addition, there's a few overarching activities that all teams will do that are geared towards student and family engagement and increasing those activities that'll help reach those employment work readiness kind of goals. So Beth and I are going to talk about these 3 activities. So on the slide, you'll see that we're really asking that you choose 3 students to do these 3 activities, and some of them can be grouped together. So maybe it's only 2. They are to introduce students and families to the Disability Hub mn.org website, and let them know that it's also a service. The second is to create a MyVault account with students. And the third is to complete one of the tools that you see on the screen that is that can be done either in the MyVault account on a fillable PDF, or there's many other ways to have these conversations. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those tools under number 3, and then I'm going to turn it over to Beth to talk about the others. So on the next slide. So what is Charting the Life course? So these tools that we're referring to, some of them are from Charting the Life course, which are really a collection of person and family-centered life planning tools. The materials that are there were created by families to help people and their families to develop a vision for a good life. So Charting the Life course can help young people, students with disabilities, and their families think about what they need to know at any age or stage of life, including how to find or develop those supports and discover what it takes to live the lives they want. So it was created to help people and their families to explore possibilities and create that vision for the future, to share ideas, hopes, fears, to encourage or start conversations, or maybe it's having a different conversation because the conversation maybe around what's going to happen after graduation has been kind of stuck. It also encourages real high expectations. So that, we have life experiences that are really going to take us to that desired direction as we navigate towards the future. Charting the Life course also helps to create and advocate for that vision by integrating different kinds of support. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of slides, but it's not about just having that service life. So it also can help with problem solving and planning. So kind of a really quick overview is that it's not just a framework or philosophy for people with disabilities. It's really for anybody, right? It's about inclusion. It's great, a great resource to kind of package ideas. And my favorite thing about it is it really they're simple to use tools and learn, and it gives a common language for us across our system, which is really helpful for students. So getting on to the 3 tools. So I'm just going to give a quick, brief overview about them, but not just about the tools, but how we would use them. Like, we don't want to just have something to fill out. We want to use it as a vehicle to do something else. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can do that. So this one folks might be most familiar with if you're familiar with any of them, and it's the one-page profile. So what it is it's a kind of an at-a-glance look at a person and a way to kind of articulate what really matters to them. So these one-page profiles are really simple to use. There's an example on the screen, but they help us to support students better by building relationships that are better and truly understanding what matters to that student in their life. When used for work, they can contribute to a more person-centered team where individual strengths are recognized, different ways of working are taken into account. This particular tool could help a student introduce themselves. That will grow their self-advocacy skills. Examples where they could do that might be at the beginning of their IEP meeting or planning meeting, or maybe it's introducing themselves to a future potential employer or coworker or service provider. This just provides a great strengths-based, one-page at-a-glance look at that person and how they can best be supported. So I'm going to move to the next. This is a Charting the Life course tool called the trajectory. A trajectory is really a path or a direction towards something. In this case, a good life, what it would look like. You can use it all different ways. So at our last meeting, we talked about kind of what was the overall vision for ECBC, like what was that trajectory? What did the overall what does project want for a vision and what we didn't want for you as participants. So you can complete them as a strand level. You'll have the option then to choose this tool to also have these conversations at the student level. So what do they want for their good life or good job? How does employment fit in maybe if you're talking about a life? So it's a really great tool to think bigger, but also drill down on like what would make a good day. And I think that's really handy when it comes to setting goals and planning and talking about that kind of stuff. So if you're filling this out, it's 3 questions, easy to use. What would you like for that good job? What wouldn't you like? What are some of the qualities that like in a job that are just not appealing? Sometimes it's easier to start there because everybody knows what they don't want, or they had a job already that had qualities they didn't want. So those qualities can then be flipped into something that is what you would want, what you are looking for. Going up the arrow is one of the most important parts, and that is like, what are the experiences or next steps related to getting to that employment? Like what work experience is needed to get to that good job or training or other things that could be explored that would take a person to the type of work experience that they're looking for. So this is a great visual tool, and you can use pictures if a student doesn't want to use words. I mean, I've seen use magazine clippings. There's lots of creative ways to use one of these trajectories. So moving on to the integrated support star. This is the third charting. There's the Charting the Life course tool as well. This tool is really about looking at a person's whole day, like what are the supports, the different supports and strengths the person has. So you can see it looks a little bit small on my screen, but I'll give you the gist of it. This is kind of an inventory of support. So if it comes to a person, like if a person is looking for employment after school, like what sort of personal strengths and assets do they have? Like starting at the top, have they had chores and responsibilities at home and schools that help support that? Do they know how to communicate their needs or access public transportation? Those are all really great strengths. So you can brainstorm those at the top of the star. Going to the left, how is technology being used throughout the day to support them? How could it support them in a job? Like, can they use online resume builders? Do they have electronic reminders set up or alarm clocks or apps that might be able to help them? And as we keep going to kind of inventory, what are the different things in the community that might help? Could they visit a business or learn about a job or attend a college or tech school? Or there's also relationship based. So that's kind of zipping up to the purple section here. Could they job shadow a family member or ask friends or family about if they could maybe do jobs or odd jobs for them, or and then kind of going down to the green section is about eligibility supports. Those are those formal supports that we're all kind of aware of, but this is helping us think broader than that. It's not just about getting a waiver and getting a certain employment service or provider that's going to lead to the job. All of these different supports could maybe lead to different employment options for a person. So you can do an inventory. If there's a section that has very little, maybe that's an opportunity to build that section up in the way of setting some goals or activities. It's also a way to solve problems. If like getting to work is a problem, maybe we put that in the middle of the star and we talk about what are the different transportation options and supports a person may have to get them to work. So this is a slide I wanted to just show. This shows the Disability Hub mn.org website. So if you are familiar with this site or not, across the top is the different ways you can kind of navigate. And on this slide, I circled that tab that says for professionals. So if you click on that tab, there's information that's organized by toolkits. So if you go into the work toolkit, hands-on tools, there's this great section here that's that helps. It's called person-centered discovery tools, but it has a guide and some resources on there. But these 3 tools are listed in there. If you look to the right and you see that little vault symbol, if you click on that, you'll go into an opportunity to sign into a vault account where it'll give you like these, it's kind of like a dynamic option for these forms where it'll ask you questions and you would complete it. And at the end, it'll spit out like a trajectory or a star or a 1-page profile. And it gives you an opportunity to save it within the vault. And Beth will talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The other option there is there's a fillable PDF, and then there's an example that's already complete. So this is a really great kind of one-stop shop for professionals to get what they need, information to support use. And there's tons of other great brand new information within these toolkits. So it's definitely worthwhile to check out too. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Beth to talk more about My Vault.
All right. Oh no, my audio is not working. Hello?
This is Lindsay. We're having trouble hearing you.
Hello?
Hi.
Oh, can you hear me at all?
You're going in and out, but we can hear you faintly.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, my camera is not working. I have one screen and my microphone. So, all right, are you hearing me okay, Lindsay?
Not very well, Beth.
Okay, well, let me see if I can readjust.
Okay.
I'm not sure. My audio. Is that better?
Yes, actually.
Okay. All right. I switched microphone. Maybe that will help.
Okay.
About that. So, Lindsay, if you can't hear me, just interrupt and say, I'll read if I need. So sorry about that, everyone.
Oh, Beth, I'm so sorry. It's
Oh,
bad
no.
again.
Oh no. Well, Carrie, I'm not sure what
Do you want me to pitch hit for you, Beth?
I do. I am so sorry. It shut down.
All right, I will take over and talk about Beth's slides. Not as good as she will, but we are both available to come into the different breakout rooms to kind of help you think about the goals for your team. What I want to talk about next is My Vault. So what My Vault is the secure personal account that you can help support a student to create that will help them plan, store files. You can favorite different articles, and you can do activities within the vault that are called paths. So this, on this slide deck, there's a link here that'll lead to a video on what My Vault is. There's a video on the introduction to Disability Hub and also a video for My Vault. And so I think it is really handy to watch the video. It's like 3 minutes and it describes it perfectly on how to do it and what it is for. I think the My Vault is really helpful from people that I've worked with, especially when it comes to students that are graduating, because that is like a secured, kind of like, I think of it like a cloud area where they can store their information that'll go with them. So like if they have a school account now and they graduate, then they can access it later. This is something that will go with them that they can keep their documents kind of organized with. And then they're allowed within the vault to share with other people that they decide to do through kind of like a secure tunnel. So it's a nice way to share information. So on this slide, it's showing you how you can get to My Vault. So if you're on the Disability Hub website, at the top of every page, the top right is this purple sign into My Vault. It's so easy to create an account. So we would just ask that you would support a student to sign up for a My Vault account. You would just fill out, like on the bottom of the screen, it talks here, you just have to put your email address and create a password and then push create an account and it will create one for you. So there is a section here that is circled that talks about if you're a professional that would do work on behalf of a student, you can create a professional account, which is a little bit different than helping a student create their own account, which is kind of the recommended way to do things, you know, that we want to show them how to create their account and support them and how they would share without it. But if you needed to do something on behalf of somebody, there is a way to do that. And it's called, you know, a professional account. And you would click that little button at the bottom there to ask, to make that request for one. So here are some different screenshots within the Disability Hub that helps show you about how you store your files. So if you have a professional's account, it allows you to kind of create folders, like so you could create different student folders to help keep their information there for them. So that's what this is showing you. So this is the screen that looks at paths. So when I talked earlier about the different tools that we were exploring, this is the way you could fill them out within the hub. So you go under this plan for work. And if you look at that, if you're looking at the screen, there's this, if you click these arrows for my profile, that's that profile page that I talked a little bit about. The next one is about resources and support. And that one is about integrated STAR. And there's my vision for work, that's a trajectory. And so if you click on these within My Vault, it'll give you a set of questions that will help you fill them out. And then you can save them in there, or you can save them to a different computer. Here are some examples of kind of what these different pathways, what the end result is. Like I said, just a few questions, and then it will kind of spit out these really pretty visual forms. So this talks about how you could use My Vault with students. So you would help them create an account and support them using it. There's different other options too, as you're looking at. So we talked a little about planning paths. If you could also store files in there. So if they had like their IEP plan or different other different documents that you use that you would just give to the student or their family, this is a way that they can store all that information. Maybe they store their resume, they store different options in the files portion. There's a section on estimator sessions. So if they're wondering how work may impact their benefits and they're putting in an inquiry for an estimator session, the results will come back into their MyVault account so they can access it here. And then under contacts is an opportunity where you can kind of set up your Rolodex or your team so that you can send information to them easily through the MyVault. So this talks about, how can you support students to use MyVault? By doing so, they can access their own information and plans, that they have a secure place to keep things, that they know who's on their team and how to reach out to them, and that they kind of have the control over their own information and ability to keep their plans and resources. And as I said earlier, it helps as they're transitioning from high school. So again, so this is about Disability Hub. So Disability Hub is a statewide free resource. So it's a website that's full of information. If you get on the main page, it's really written for people with disabilities or self-advocates. And then, as I said, you click in there's a for families section that's written for families, a great resource to send them. And then there's that for professionals part. So you can get a lot of great information there, but it's not just a source of information, a website, it's also a service. So there's folks that you can reach there via chat, email, phone call. They're like experts in all things disabilities. So I would really encourage folks to use them as a resource or support somebody to get the information to either call or they can three-way call. They're amazing, really amazing. So here are some of the things they can do: help solve problems, navigate the system. They know the ins and outs of all the programs and resources. So there's also a 2-minute video on the website about like what is the hub, in case you wanted to introduce it to a student that way or help provide that link to a family. So they have that as a resource. Here are the ways that you can reach out. The Disability Hub website is also tied to the DB 101, which is the Disability Benefits 101 website, and also the Housing Benefits 101 website. So they're all kind of linked together. Minnesota Help is kind of the listing of different resources. That's also, they're all kind of tied together nicely. So this slide is Ask Us Anything, the things that the Disability Hub folks staff can help with. There's staff that really specialize in all of these questions. These are frequently asked questions about health insurance options, work, community living, benefits while working, rights. All of these are things that they can definitely be a resource for.
Thank you, Carrie.
Yeah.
All right, beautiful. And I also really loved how you highlighted like going to the Disability Hub. I feel like that's a tool that all of us on here today would want to kind of highlight for ourselves as well as our families and our youth as that one-stop shop. So it's really nice to go through that today. We just want to recap a little bit of what Beth and Carrie kind of went over today in terms of relating that to the workbook milestones that are in ECBC SharePoint. Don't worry if you still can't get in, we will help you, and are approving as well. So for that recap, each community team will choose at least 3 students and do the following 3 things. So first, remember you're choosing 3 as a team. First, you'll introduce the student and family to Disability Hub and or service. Second, create a MyVault account with a student. Third, complete one of the following Charting the Life course tools. So the 1-page profile, trajectory, or the integrated support star. You could use all 3 too. And so making sure that you do all 3 of those things. And those are also in your workbook. We will reiterate it today in your breakouts as well. And keeping in mind, all these tools can be created in a fillable form with a student in their MyVault account. Go MyVault. Okay, so then looking at our action plan, which we will also look at today and work on. So that first one that we just went over in the last slide of putting on your action plan as that action step. So you're going to plan for how your team will choose at least 3 students to complete the community teams milestone. So that would go into your action plan on that first step and work your way over on that chart. Then the second one, you'll go into more detail in your strand specific breakouts today. And we will help you in those to get more action steps on your action plan. All right. I'll keep us moving along. So we're going to next go into what counts for tracking ECBC student outcomes. I don't think I thanked Carrie. Thank you guys. Okay, so going into just keeping in mind, some of us already know this, just a refresher for all of us. So ECBC, as many of us do know, began out of that Minnesota Olmsted Plan back in 2014 with that focus on increasing those competitive integrated employment outcomes for our students ages 19 through 21 who had that disability category of developmental cognitive disabilities. And the reason why is because historically our students with that DCD category have been tracked or placed into segregated employment settings. We then took that focus and expanded it into counting all students with all disabilities, but keeping in mind we still are tracking that same population. So we're tracking it by disability category and by age, and we increased that age to 18 through 21. Then we're going to go into the overview of the data we track. This is all in your workbooks. So if we see here, we have the screenshot of exactly what's in your workbook. So the big circle, these are your goals. Can you guys see my cursor if I move? Oh, yeah. Okay, thanks, Alyssa. So you'll see this big circle. This is where you're entering your goal. So your goal would be in this first column for 1, which is all students ages 18 to 21 who are employed during the school year. So you're going to enter your goal and keeping up to date your progress each month. And then next one, you're going to enter your goal for 1A. So of this number of every student 18 through 21, how many with DCD as their primary category would be your goal, and then update your progress monthly. Then the second goal is all students 18 through 21 who are gaining new employment. And so you'll enter your goal here and your progress date up to date here at your monthly meetings. And then the final one, 2A, of the number of new employment, how many of those students have DCD? So you would put that in your goal area and then your progress to date. Then down below here, you have these additional circles that we wanted to draw our attention to. So this is still in that student tracker tab. And so you're going to put here and you list below your students, but not their student's full name, however you want to identify them, whether they'll be initials or whatever system you come up with. And then filling in this chart along the way, we did add this new section of completing that trajectory, which we went over in October. However, wanted to bring it back here like that we have on that community teams milestones of completing a trajectory potentially with your students. And then we added some additional items. So you'll want to scroll over on your taskbar for additional items for the specific strand breakouts.
Okay, so just to be clear, Lindsay just went through that, but I know it might be a little confusing. So just wanted to reiterate those 4 goals, 1, 1A, 2, 2A. So again, number 1 is the number of all the students ages 18 to 21 from your team, from your district, in 18 to 21 transition programming, who've been employed during the current year. So they could have got their job last year, they could have got it this year. So all the students that are employed. That starts on July 1st. I know there's questions about when the year starts. So July 1st through June 30th. Again, you're looking at all disability categories. And another hint, add up all those who were employed this year and obtained employment prior to this school year and those who were employed this school year. So it's a total amount. And then number 1A is of this number, how many of those students have a primary disability of DCD? Next. Number 2. So now this is a subset of number 1. Of that total number, how many of those students obtain new employment this year? Because the new employment is, we want to keep seeing, we don't want to just be going up the students that got jobs last year and not getting more new employment for students this year. So how many obtained new employment this year? And then of that number, primary disability of DCD. And Caroline, we're going to answer your question in a moment. So again, this is just a reminder of the data we shared earlier. This was our total from last year of 1, 1A, 2, and 2A. So we'll just want to keep that in mind, and you can look at your spreadsheet from last year. We want to just try to get those numbers up. We want to meet our goal, especially of 2A, of 150 students with DCD that get new employment this year. All right, so we've got, go ahead. Sorry, Lindsay.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So we're going to go into our frequently asked questions, which some of you have already put in the chat. So I love that you guys are already thinking of these questions. So question 1, and I should specify, we do have a recording of all these questions. I believe that's in the SharePoint, if I'm remembering correctly, but we'll make sure to highlight that. But question 1, which students should our team be tracking? So again, we would encourage that you're tracking the students who have a disability between the ages of 18 through 21 and who are in 18 to 21-year-old transition programming. So not in their typical high school senior year. Question 2, what is the definition of employment for ECBC? So we're saying that the definition, employment must be competitive integrated employment defined by the Minnesota's Employment First policy, which is linked here. But in summary, so it has to be full-time, part-time, or self-employment with and without supports in the competitive labor force, on the payroll of a competitive business or industry, and pays at least minimum wage, but not less than the customary wage, and level of benefits paid by the employer or for the same or similar work performed by the workers without a disability.
All right, question number 3. Can VRS pre-ETS work experiences count as employment for ECBC purposes? The answer is ECBC employment outcomes can include when VRS helps with what we call intermediate jobs. So it's a job, a stepping stone on the way to that career job that student's shooting for. And that's another example is when the wages are paid by an employer. On the other hand, ECBC employment outcomes cannot include when VRS is helping with the short-term experiences where we are, giving funds to a provider who is in turn paying that student because we're subsidizing the wages. It's not on a competitive business's payroll. If any of you are not knowing a lot about the VRS work experiences, consult with your VRS team member on your community team. And I think it'd be really good to talk more about that because that's a tool in everybody's toolbox to help students with getting jobs. And is this one me too? Number 4, how long does a student need to hold a job for it to count as an ECBC employment outcome? A student must have held a CIE job for at least 1 shift in order for it to count as an ECBC outcome. So that's pretty nice, pretty flexible there.
I think that's my favorite one. So question number 5, do we only track employment that was obtained this school year? So we touched on it before, but just to reiterate, no. We track the number of students who obtain employment this school year, as well as those who obtained employment prior to this school year, and are still maintaining that employment. So if we go to the next slide here, just to give, so I think Nancy, you may have asked this in the chat, but so teams can only count one outcome per student each school year. So that time frame there, you'll see July 1, 2021 through June 30th of 2022. So for example, if a student obtains employment during this school year and maintains employment for one shift or more, then loses or quits the job, but then obtains a new job during this school year and maintains it for one shift or more, the team would only count that student once. And then you would track that within your student tracker tab on the workbook, and you would enter the student twice, so you could keep track of it in there.
All right, last question, number 6. Can we count an employment outcome if the student got the job without our support? And that's another wonderful answer, which is yes. Teams can count an employment outcome even if the student obtained and or maintained the job without support from the school VRS or the county. That's the ultimate goal, that students could get their jobs on their own, and hopefully, you know, there were tools that you all helped with along the way. So that's it for number 6. And then just wanted to take, we just very briefly, we don't have a whole lot of time, but does anyone else have any questions right now? You could raise your hand or put it in the chat. You can raise your hand by clicking on reactions, and you'll see raise hand there at the bottom of your screen. Certainly, you can email us too. I think on the next slide, or the slide at the end, we have our contact information. So let us know if you have more questions. There's our contact info. I think we should cut out so we have a little bit of a time for a break before going into our breakouts.
Could I chime in really quickly? I think let's just make sure we can. So our next step is we are going to move into our breakouts. We do have individual links for those. So maybe we could just, I'm going to plop them in the chat here. And so we will all leave this meeting, us included, and you will go into your separate link. I think there's some questions coming in the chat, but I'm gonna, so the first one coming will be high quality transition programming. I think there's a question about tree trust.
Let us get back to you on that, Carol. Yeah, and we'll let everyone know the answer.
Okay, so here is the link for high quality transition. The next one coming is customized employment. And then the last, but certainly not least, is the business engagement. So if you want to, once you leave here, you can click into your link. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then our Strand leads will begin our breakout sessions.
We'll start breakout sessions at 2:03.
3. We do our math. Okay, so we can stop recording.